What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. There are almost 1,000 Pokemon at this point, so you're going to have a bunch of great ones out there. But you're also bound to find some great ideas for Pokemon that don't always live up to their full potential, and an amazing design might let you down by not being able to pull its own weight. So let's see if we can look at some of the standout Pokemon that are generally loved and improve their abilities in battle to make them at least slightly usable. That's not to say that battle is the end-all be-all in Pokemon. If anyone knows that, it's me. But if they can barely contribute to an NPC battle, it does make it harder. So, here are the top 6 Pokemon that need to be better. Number 6. Lapras. There are plenty of Pokemon that could use a good sprucing up, but we can't focus on every single lackluster pocket monster out there. This is specifically meant for beloved Pokemon that are universally adored designs. So as much as Sunflora or Delibird need improving, we're really focused on cool Pokemon. That being said, there's no one cooler than my favorite Ice-type, Lapras. This plesiosaur Pokemon has been a fan favorite for generations, as evidenced by being the served Pokemon of choice over the years. I say fan favorite because it has not been so indispensable in the combat arena. Now, I'll just go ahead and say that my goal is to focus on these Pokemon specifically, meaning that my suggestions will not really be for a new regional form or evolution or anything, since in actuality those new forms always overshadow the previous iterations that get ignored even more than before. So, how do we make Lapras better? Well, it's already got some great abilities for defending, and it's also a pretty expansive move pool with a lot of coverage, but maybe not enough? As good as water is defensively, being paired with ice still leaves it with some weaknesses, and while rock and grass are definitely covered and even fighting to some extent, there's not too much for electric. So instead of just adding ground moves to a creature that's never been on land, I would say adding some special defense would be good. Pokemon is no stranger to tweaking stats between generations, so it is feasible. 10 points might not sound like much, but it could be life or death against an electric type. And maybe 5 points in speed could help Lapras win a battle or two more as well. Lapras can be useful, I've used one often, but if it were just a little sturdier, more people might be picking it for their competitive exploits as well. Number 5. Solrock and Lunatone. These Meteorite Pokemon from Hoenn are actually pretty great. They have interesting and unique designs, and they were so inspiring the people in charge gave them their own gym. So the fact that they are so underserved when it comes to battle is a little disappointing. I mean, they're alright, you can put one on your team if you want, but it's not usually going to be the cornerstone of your championship. The thing is, they should be swapped. See, their stats are intentionally opposite of each other, one being special and one being physical. This is a strange choice to begin with, seeing as how Rock is almost exclusively a physical type and Psychic is almost entirely special. So both being Rock and Psychic types mean that they basically each only have access to one of their elements. But the problem is they picked Solrock to be physical and Lunatone to be special. What? Let's do some basic astronomy, shall we? What is the sun? A big ball of flaming gas? That's right. And what is the moon? An orb comprised of pure rock? Correct. Solrock should clearly be the special one and vice versa. Lunatone can get Moonblast and some ice moves, but that's about the only unique thing that it would miss out on by doing some curls. But a major part of Solrock's move pool is fire attacks, which are all indeed special. So really just swapping this disparity would do wonders for them both. Apart from that, I would suggest we give them a little more coverage based on their appropriate leanings, since they do still have a surprising amount of weaknesses. At the very least, you'd think they would have allowed them to show up in the games that were named after them. Number 4. Pyroar. When we first saw Pyroar, we were all excited to finally have a real lion Pokemon. I easily liked it better than the actual Fire-type starter of the Kalos region, and even though it could be considered a signature Pokemon for an evil team leader, I'm not sure that Pyroar is up to snuff with the other battle-ready Pokemon to come out of X and Y. First problem is, the male version is barely above a 10% chance to get. Now this might be realistic, but clearly this rock and mane is meant to be seen more than that. But more importantly, Pyroar is not really a standout combatant, and I can't help but think that it's because it's not what you would expect. Pyroar's highest stat is its 109 special attack, which is only just trailed by speed, so that's good. But when you think of a lion, don't you think of, the physical side? Its teeth, its claws? You're not really expecting it to shoot out beams of energy. Pyroar gets coverage for ground, electric, steel, and flying, which are all exclusively physically based moves. So switching its emphasis to better reflect its origins and capabilities would help to elevate the big regal cat. Now obviously it's going to be outclassed by Talonflame as far as a speedy fire type, so maybe shift some of that speed to defense as well, to let it stick around for a little longer. Maybe that ultimately wouldn't end up benefiting this Pokemon, but it's worth a shot. We could always tweak it back if it doesn't work out, but as it stands, there's already so many special attackers in Kalos that Pyroar has a hard time living up to its status as a king. Number 3. Meganium. Out of all the starter Pokemon to exist, I think it's pretty accepted that the Johto crop are the most ignored or underserved. And of those three, Meganium has definitely been left out in the cold. Its base stat total is the lowest of the three, and its best areas are both defenses, which is just a joke for a grass type, because you'll be weak to a third of the game regardless of how durable you think you are. It's weak to the first two gyms in Johto, can do precious little to all of the poison-type ghosts in Ecruteak City, might have an advantage over Price's Pokemon, but is just as weak to them in return, and is neutral at best to Claire's Kingdra. And don't even think that it fares much better in the Elite Four. So, how can we make this Plantosaurus worthy of its starter Pokemon status? Well, take your pick. Firstly, I find it difficult to keep alive, so make some health-draining moves easier to come by. Meganium can get things like Leech Seed and Giga Drain, but only through work of tutors or egg moves, so can we please just add some of those to its level-up set? That sliver of stolen health could make all the difference. And also, Meganium has precious few other types for coverage, and outside of normal, it's only about one move for each of those types anyway. You would think that it would at least get Psychic or something if someone like Electivire can. And maybe even a new ability like Effect Spore or something could be useful as well. That's probably the best of these small, likely changes, and I know what I said before, but I truly think if any Pokemon could use another form, it is the Gen 2 Flower Lizard. So I honestly don't think Megas are coming back anytime soon. Seriously, they're not gonna randomly put new Megas in the Sinnoh remakes, guys. Stop getting your hopes up. But I do think Meganium specifically might gain the most of any Pokemon to receive a Mega Evolution. The other two starters could maybe use them, but as redundant as Mega Meganium sounds, it's almost a necessity to keep this Pokemon from falling short of its starter pedigree. Number 2. Auroras. Man, what is it with the dinosaur ones? I love Auroras. It's a beautiful half of my favorite fossil pair, and if it were in any other game besides next to Tyrantrum, it would easily be my top choice for Resurrection. Which makes it all the more sad that this rainbow dinosaur indisputably stinks. See, Ice and Rock both have a bunch of weaknesses. The one that cancels out seems to be Fire, but that's offset by gaining 2 4x weaknesses of Fighting and Steel. So the moral of the story is don't fight a Lucario with this thing, but pretty much all of these types are ridiculously common offensive elements that you'll face in almost every battle. Sure, Ice is pretty solid coverage, and Auroras does actually get a multitude of other type attacks, but as we already mentioned, Auroras has very few rock moves that it can use with its superior special attack. And it's got absurd amounts of HP, but that doesn't really help when you have so many crippling points of exposure to be exploited. Not to mention the fact that its 2 quad weaknesses are primarily physical, meaning that they'll run right over Auroras' negligible defense. So that might be the biggest thing, is boosting its defense. You could even take it out of speed if you want, because it does make sense for Auroras to be slow. But for a thick-skinned dinosaur made out of rock, you would think that it could take a punch. Outside of that, I would say Auroras would be a good candidate for a signature move or something to do with actual Auroras themselves and their likely ability to control them. or maybe just an ability called Northern Lights or something that could set up Aurora Veil outside of a hailstorm. Maybe that's a little OP, but honestly, it would really just bring Auroras up to neutral, since it is burdened with one of the worst type combinations in the game. Poor thing. Number 1. Onyx. Now, you might be thinking, why even bother with Onyx? It's had an evolution since Gen 2, and that is accurate. However, the way Game Freak works is not always consistent, and sometimes we don't necessarily have access to the full span of the Pokédex. For examples, just look at when Pokemon Go was launched, or even the Let's Go games where Onyx is the end of its line. So, if they insist on leaving our Rock Snake hanging so much, the least they can do is let him be a little better to use. Because, here's the thing, if you look across the Gen 1 roster, Onyx clearly stands out as one of the most intimidating. It was the biggest Pokemon in existence, and consistently portrayed as being incredibly tough to take down in other media. So the fact that when we tried it for ourselves, it let us down so spectacularly left most players confused as to how this Rock Snake was so far off from our expectations. And I know this type combination yields double 4 times weaknesses as well, but there's not much we can do about that. But there are some fairly simple fine-tunings that we can do to lift Onyx to even half of where we all expect him to be. Namely, give him some ground-type moves. This thing is half ground-type, but it didn't get a single ground move in its level-up set until Gen 3, and even then it wasn't until somewhere in the 30s. Conservatively, that is at least a third of the way through the game, maybe more, and if Onyx can't pull its weight in all that time because its only good moves tend to miss, you're likely to just box the thing. Let's Go did address this by adding more and better ground attacks, but at the expense of coverage like Dragon Breath and Gyro Ball. What, can we really not have both? So just giving it a good magnitude at level 10 or something would go a long way to letting Onyx be of use before you already build out your whole team. Well, that and buffing its attack just a smidge. Honestly, a 45 attack stat is an insult on this thing. How is its speed higher than its attack? That makes no sense. So can we please boost it at least a tiny bit so that it can actually do some damage in battle, instead of just sitting there forever with no way to hit back? And that's it! 1 or 2 ground-type moves and even just 15 points in attack would probably be enough to make this Pokemon useful. Aside from making it a Crystal Onyx, I guess. Again, we're not even talking strictly competitive, but for some reason, these brilliantly designed Pokemon can even be hard to pull off in a standard playthrough. So please, can we actually do their designs some justice and let them be productive team members from now on? What great Pokemon do you find hard to use? How would you fix them? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!